The city council previously had a meeting disrupted by anti-Semitic and racist hate speech. The city council does not tolerate such actions and strongly condemns them. While it may not always be possible to prevent hate speech from occurring during public comments, the council will continue to take measures to make it more difficult to express such views. Any agenda additions or changes?
No.
Okay. All right. No need to approve the agenda. All right. The public to be heard. So this is the portion of the meeting where if you have anything you want to share with the council, it's either on the agenda or not on the agenda, please feel free to raise your hand. We don't have anybody here in the room, so we're just looking for hands online. And Regina, I can't see anybody, so I'm gonna.
I do not see any hands so far.
Okay.
Let's just do a test. Jess, can you let us know if you can hear us?
I can hear you. Can you hear me?
Yes.
We can
great.
hear you. Thanks.
Thank you.
Great.
Okay. Then I will move on to business item A, which is discussion and consideration of the FY25 Chittenden Solid Waste District budget. And before we begin with Sarah, I'm going to ask for any conflicts.
I have a conflict. I perceive a conflict. My wife is an employee of the waste district. She will be participating to support Sarah in tonight's presentation. So on those grounds, I'm going to extricate from the discussion.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you, Marcus.
And Amber, just so folks are aware, Elaine is participating online, so we do still have a quorum.
Thank you. Okay. Hi, Sarah.
Hi, good evening. Thank you for having me on tonight. I appreciate your time and attention. Regina, actually, if you could allow Elise to screen share, that would be great. I'll give a brief presentation of our budget. For the folks at home, I'm Sarah Reeves. I'm the Executive Director for the Chittenden Solid Waste District, and the Waste District is charged with managing waste generated within Chittenden County and doing so in an economical, environmentally sensitive, efficient, and effective manner. We are here to present our fiscal year 2025 budget to you for authorization, and our charter does require that our member cities and towns approve our budget. So when we get to 10 of our members, our budget is considered approved, and then we can continue with our business as of July 1. So we do appreciate your consideration of that budget. And let's see, Elise may be having some.
I don't see an option to share, so I'm not sure I've been promoted.
Okay.
I made you close. Shoot. It
If
should
not, I
work for you.
can do that. It's just I've been having connectivity issues. So the hope was that if Elise is able to be promoted to presenter and be able to share, if my tech issues continue, then Elise can pick up where I've left off. So that's the main consideration. But if not, I will soldier on.
Oh, I'm seeing it now. Hold on, let me give it a try. Okay. Let me know if you can see it.
We can.
Got it.
Okay, awesome. Then
Thanks very
I'm good. I'm going to mute myself and I'll just listen to Sarah.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Next slide, please. Next slide, please. Great. So as a reminder, this is who we are. And I like to, on this slide, because we're talking about our budget, point out the three main buckets of our revenue. And we derive our revenue from three main areas: our user fees or our tip fees. So those are the fees that our customers pay directly to us to manage waste on their behalf. A solid waste management fee, which is essentially a tax on the trash that is disposed in Chittenden, from Chittenden County generators in the Coventry landfill, and the material and product sales, so the sale of compost and recyclables and local color paint. What we don't receive any revenue from are local income, local sales, or local property taxes. And we also do not assess a per capita fee on any of our member cities or towns. Next, please. And based on input and feedback from past presentations, I do also like to present an update to how we're doing. And as usual, we've come to expect that Virginia County residents and businesses are doing a really good job. So of the just over 300,000 tons that are generated, that's all solid waste, we are diverting almost 190,000 tons. That's amazing. I do want us to take a look at that column 3 though, and you'll see of the 120,000 tons that were disposed in the landfill, about half of that could actually have been further diverted. So that's really where we focus our attention, is on getting that material out of disposal and then back into the correct buckets in column number 2. Next, please. So this is the breakdown of our fiscal 25 income expectation or hope, just under 16 million. And again, there are those 3 buckets, the tipping fees still being the bulk of our revenue, solid waste management fee hovering around that 24 to 25%. And that sale of materials, that does fluctuate up and down according to market. Next, please. And I thought I would also show a similar chart for our expenses. And I think the city will probably not be surprised to see that payroll expenses are a large component of our expenses. And they, just like everywhere else, have climbed due to, mainly due to benefits. Those continue to climb, especially the healthcare costs. But materials management continues to be the biggest component of our expenses. And when we say materials management, we're talking about the fees that we pay to essentially to haulers or to others who will manage materials on our behalf. So it includes the fees that we pay to Casella to operate the materials recycling facility. It's the tipping fees that we pay at the transfer station. It's fees we pay to other companies to move materials to market for us. Next, please. So when we're looking at our bottom line, this year is unusual in that we are, again, if everything in the budget goes according to exactly how it is written, we're looking at a shortfall of just under $300,000. And I'll explain a little bit more about how we're approaching that in a moment. Next, please. So a very brief comparison this current year to the next year. Part of the issue is that our revenue is only expected to go up about 3.6%, just under 4%. We are looking at static increases to material sales, and that's mainly at the recycling facility. So we're looking for some increase in the tip fee. The solid waste management fee is increasing, and I'll talk about that in a moment as well. The largest percentage increase to our expenses are on that equipment and fleet line item. Just about half of that is related to the existing materials recycling facility, that aging infrastructure. And I will review a little more about that in a moment as well. So how we're going to be approaching that shortfall should that occur. Every year we always conservatively under budget and conservatively over budget certain things. So we conservatively under budget income in the areas that are there in front of you, and mainly on that materials recycling line item, the revenue we receive from commodity sales. That is because we do not control that market. We don't control the pricing that we may receive. We also don't necessarily control the inbound tons that we process, but we are actively seeking additional tons, as we are actively seeking additional material coming into our organics recycling facility, our compost facility. We also conservatively over budget on wages and benefits, mostly not on the wages side, but we do over budget on the benefits side. We do have in this budget hiring 4 new people, for new positions, and we always will budget for the family plan on the healthcare. And that is, as you know, the largest, the greatest amount on the benefits. What we're doing to kind of mitigate those costs is we continue to look at ways that we can reduce the impact to the district without overly burdening the impact to our employees. Our employees already do pay 3.5% towards the cost of their healthcare as part out of their salaries. We also moved to a less expensive plan about a year and a half ago, 2 years ago, to try to reduce the overall costs. But it doesn't seem to going down. It always goes up by double digits. So that is a struggle for everyone. Next, please. This is a change, and this has not changed in 12 years. So we have increased, our board approved an ordinance change to increase our solid waste management fee from the current $27 per ton to $30 per ton. And as we're saying, this is the first increase since fiscal 13. This is the fee that haulers pay when they bring material to Coventry for disposal. So it's only on trash. So this fee is not charged on recycling. It's not charged on food scraps, scrap metal. It's only charged on the material that is being physically disposed. So you kind of ran some numbers to say, well, if haulers do decide to spread this cost out across all of their customers, impacts to households who may have curbside service would be under 30 cents per month. And we calculated that based on the pounds per capita. Drop-off center customers, both residential and small businesses, can reduce the impact seen by this increase simply by reducing the waste, because the fee is also built into bag price, for example, at drop-off centers, as well as the cubic yard pricing for small businesses. So as they generate less waste, they will reduce their impact of this fee. Next, please. We are also increasing our tip fee at the materials recycling facility. It currently is $85 per ton, or going up to $90 per ton. And this is, again, due to needing to cover the costs associated with this existing facility. So this is not related to constructing a new facility. This is to keep this old one, going. And we ideally would have decommissioned this old gal a couple of years ago, but everything kind of got thrown off course due to pandemic and et cetera. So we are a couple of years behind in what we ideally would have liked to have done for the new MRF. Because of that, this existing facility is at the end of its useful life, and things are breaking down, and the things that are breaking down are expensive. So there's that $250,000. We're hoping we won't have to spend it, but we have to budget for it because things are at the end of their useful life. And again, we're conservatively budgeting that average commodity revenue at $75 a ton. I do think we will exceed that, but again, it's out of our control, so we want to be sure to not overpromise there. Next. Some good news, we are not increasing the tip fee at the organics recycling facility, so that will remain at $70 per ton. Our inbound tons are budgeted slightly below last year. We're still seeing material going to the Casella facility. We did increase our prices on the compost products, and our sales remain strong. So we are closer to the market rates, both for the MRF, the materials recycling facility, and for the ORF, the organics recycling facility, and we're still on the lower end, more affordable range, but we need to be edging closer to that market range. Next, please. More good news, we are not increasing our pricing at the drop-off centers, so there's no increase to the bag prices there. The budget does reflect some additional hours, both in Milton and in Burlington. We're very excited to be bringing Burlington back online, hopefully at the end of this current fiscal year, but definitely for July. And they will also be with the same Tuesday to Saturday schedule. Right now, we accept credit cards at all of our drop-off centers, and once Burlington is online, they will also be accepting credit cards. Next, please. Just a very brief highlights of some of the capital projects. Again, we are going to be kicking off the new MRF project. We'll be awarding that contract in the next month or so, hopefully to be breaking ground late this summer or very early fall. We're also reconfiguring our drop-off centers in Burlington very moderately there, hopefully a little bit more extensively in the and we're looking at all of our stormwater infrastructure, just, again, being prudent in response to all of the heavy rains that we've had over the past several years. And on the fund equity, all of our reserves are adequately funded with the exception of the landfill post-closure reserve. And that reserve was established 29 years ago to manage the expenses associated with the landfills that we manage in Williston. And it's not unusual that at this point in the 30-year closure plan, you would start to, you would think you would not need to be spending more money because there are so many unknowns with how we are going to be expected to manage PFAS and our leachate. we know we need more money in that reserve. So we expect to dwindle it down over the course of the 30 years, but you don't expect to have potentially a major expense coming in at year 28 or 29. And so we're planning for that, and that's, a good portion of the increase of solid waste management fee revenue will be going into this reserve. So we needed a way to boost that reserve, and that is one of the uses of the increase that's being done. Next, please. And as I mentioned at the beginning, we do ask our member cities and towns to consider our budget for adoption. And with that, I will ask Lisa to stop sharing, and I would be happy to answer any questions that you may have. There was a lot of information I threw at you.
I have one question about the contamination policy for
Yeah.
compost, if you just, or organics, if you just don't mind describing what that impact could be for users.
Yes, absolutely. So this is something that we've been working on for many, many years, and it actually mirrors the existing contamination policy that we've had in place for the materials recycling facility for quite some time. And it's a tool that we're missing in our toolbox to be able to basically help us to help haulers to better address contamination with their customers. And really the goal of the policy is to not levy any fine at all. We are not looking at this as a revenue generating line. It's to be able to work with our haulers to identify areas where they're struggling to have their customers basically fall into line with being mindful of contamination. They can then say, hey, we now have this potential thing that we could be hit with a fine, which unfortunately I'm going to have to pass on to you, the customer. Let's not do that. Let's not go there. Let's work on these issues. Most of the time, particularly with commercial accounts, the haulers have really a pretty good idea of where the contamination could be originating. They will certainly know, they'll know which day, which narrows things down. They may even know which school. They're pretty in tune with their customers. What we'll do is we will work with the haulers to try to identify those customers, have our outreach team go work with the client if the hauler is not comfortable bringing that message to them, and we will then work on their program. So the goal again is it's really not to fine anybody, but haulers have said that they will, they've indicated that they are appreciative of the steps we're taking and having structure around what the expectation is and what constitutes contamination. There are different levels. There are certain things that are absolutely, if we see a red medical bag, for example, and that, sorry, there's no question that load is being rejected. But our goal is not to reject any loads. It really is to make every load as clean as possible. So we've been working with haulers for pretty steadily for the past year on developing this. They've been very well informed. They know it's coming. We've been also for the past several months kind of doing like test drives of the policy with them to say, if the policy were in place now, this is what you could expect. This is what this looks like. Here's what we would do. So again, it's another tool both for us, CSWD, but also for the hauling community to be able to really tackle this problem. And when we're talking about it, we're looking at things like cartons, milk cartons, juice cartons. There's a contaminant, film. Sometimes a garbage bag is thrown in there by mistake. We know that that's a mistake. So that's an easy one to go and say, oh, hey, ABC school, let's make sure that we don't throw garbage in with the compost. So things of that nature is what we're mostly saying.
Makes sense. Thank you.
I can't see Elaine, but I don't know. Elaine, do you have any questions for Sarah?
I do not, thank you.
Thanks.
Sarah, did you want to mention the community cleanup fund?
Oh, thank you very much, Elise. I would like to mention our community cleanup fund. That is revenue that also, expenses that also we don't tend to fully realize, but we want to. We want to fully expend that money. So we're always thankful for our communities that do fully utilize that. And I know, I'm pretty sure that Mike has, Commissioner for the city has been asking our folks about, different ways to utilize that fund. And as a reminder, it no longer carries over and rolls over. You get your full amount every July 1. So you could potentially string, kind of 2 years worth of funding if you have like a larger project. If half of maybe begins in May and the other half finishes out in July, you could really have some big impacts. And our team is happy to help you talk through some different options and help figure out how to really utilize those funds in your community. So thank you for the reminder. I definitely want to put in a plug for please use that money. Please take our money for use within the town. We want you to have it.
Thank you. All right, I will open it up to the public for any questions. Regina, you're my eyes.
Don't take any hand.
Flying blind here. Okay. Marcus, anything? Okay. All right. I think we'll entertain the motion.
I will make a motion to approve the FY25 Chittenden Solid Waste District budget as presented.
Second.
Thanks, Elaine. All right. All in favor?
Aye.
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 All right.
I think with a remote person, you do a roll. Yeah.
Yep. All right. So we have to do a roll call, Elaine.
Sorry about that.
Andrew?
Aye.
Elaine?
Aye.
Amber's aye. All right. Thank you.
Thanks very much. I appreciate your time.
Thanks, Sarah. Thanks, Elise.
Thank you, Sarah. Thank you, Elise.
Thank you.
All right. You can come back to the table. Welcome. All right, we will move to item 5B, which is discussion and consideration of the FY25 enterprise fund operating, etc. Not reading that whole line. Jess.
Hello. I'm going to apologize in advance. I'm losing my voice, so I'll try to make this as quick as possible.
And Jess,
All right.
for Amber.
Yeah.
Since you're flying blind.
Yep.
We've got Brad, Chelsea, and Ricky on the call as well, if anybody has any questions for them.
Cool. Thank you.
All right. All right. Can you guys see the memo that I'm sharing on my screen?
Yes.
We can.
Perfect. All right. So this is our second presentation of enterprise budgets. There's really not a whole lot of change to the budgets themselves outside of wastewater, but we do have some changes to user fees in a positive direction. The fees have decreased for the most part from our original preliminary presentation. So I'll just kind of start from the top and work down through. The original presentation, and I'm going to flip over to the original memo because I didn't put this in this memo. So if you'll recall, our overall user rate increase was estimated to be about 6.5%, or around $43 per year for the average household. And as of now, with revised budgets and fees, we are at a 2.67% increase, which amounts to $17.52 per year. No change to the enterprise fund admin fee allocation, so that information is the same. So in the water fund, our original estimate was about a 5.8% increase in fees. We are now able to say that the fees in the water fund will remain pretty much the same overall. So a 0.04% increase, or 12 cents per year for the average household. No changes to the budget in the water fund. The wastewater fund, we were originally estimating an just under 11.5% rate increase, which would have been about $22.40 per year. we're now showing a 5.75% increase, or $11.24 per year. So this budget is the only budget that had changes in the operating expenses. And there's a memo in the reading file of this packet that explains more about what the increases exactly are related to, as far as the biosolids land application and subcontractor expenses. And then in the sanitation fund, we originally estimated a 1.94% increase, or just about $3 per year. We did increase the capital transfer for this since our last presentation. So originally we had a $95,000 transfer to capital. We've increased that to $150,000. So our rate now is estimated to be about a 3.89% increase, or $6.16 per year. And I'll talk a little bit more about the capital transfer. So in the sanitation fund, the capital reserve was significantly underfunded. And if you recall from our last presentation, we were talking about needing to do some upgrades at pump stations, and some of that cost being shared with the town of Essex. We had estimated debt service payments and the cost of those projects, and that expense was putting the capital reserve and the sanitation fund in the negative in future years. So what we've done is increase the capital transfer this year, but also increased it year over year beyond FY25 to try and help get that fund back in the positive, and able to cover some, hopefully, the capital expenses that we'll be seeing. And still exploring other options for funding that reserve. There's a potential that we could have the wastewater fund cover some of the pump station expenses, because they are so interconnected, these two funds. So that's one area that we're looking at for future consideration. So the enterprise funds capital, no changes in here except for that sanitation transfer that I spoke about. And then also in the EGRP program fund, no changes here at all. Everything is the same as what was originally presented. So the next steps are, if the budgets are reviewed and approved tonight, we will set our public hearing. As if you'll recall, we have to hold one public hearing to set the large user rate for the water fund. And basically what we do is we set all of our enterprise rates at that after that public hearing as well. Does anybody have any specific questions or?
Right. Jess, so even adding the $55,000 transfer to capital in the sanitation fund, and increasing that year over year, we're still finding ourselves in the red, and I think it's 28.
Yes.
Right.
Yep.
Is there a potential to get ourselves out of that, to find ourselves in the positive, if we were to increase that $55,000 now?
Absolutely. So as luck would have it, I have a scenario mocked up that shows exactly what Amber's questioning. So if we were to increase the capital transfer in FY25 by an additional 22,000, so up to 172,000 for FY25, and then also increase $20,000 per year above the 30, so a total of a $50,000 increase per year for the next 5 years after that, it does put the fund into the positive, and you can see growing an actual reserve balance into the future. And what that looks like on the rate side is it would increase our budget by that 22,000. And rates for the water fund then would increase 6.53% or just over $10 per year per household.
Jess, is it possible to increase the zoom on this particular?
Yeah. Yep.
Awesome. Thanks.
Thanks, Jess.
Yeah.
Thoughts?
Can I ask about the, when I'm looking at revenues in the wastewater, and the note is estimated on FY '23 actual flow allocation?
Yep.
Is it because of the fact that we don't have enough FY '24 data yet? I'm thinking that, in my estimation, I would think we have enough months behind us to kind of project forward in order to come to a closer number or use a more recent number in order to determine this allocation. But I mean, help me understand the reason.
So we had started our analysis for the preliminary budgets using the most recent FY '24 data to date, which at the time I believe was through January. Since then, both of the member communities, Williston and the town of Essex, their flow meters have had issues and malfunctions and needed to be replaced. So our flow data has not been accurate for the last going on 3 months in FY '24. So what we did was we kind of looked back rather than trying to guess and project what FY '24 would look like, because we also have had some significant storm events with possible higher infiltration from stormwater that's a whole separate issue that Tri-Town is working on sort of troubleshooting and resolving. So those two things tied together, we decided it was best to just look back historically and see kind of what the average has been over the last few years. FY '22 and FY '23 were both almost exactly the same allocation percentages by community. So Chelsea called a kind of an emergency tri-town meeting a few weeks ago. We met, discussed it with the other members, and decided to use the FY '23 actuals to base our FY '25 rate projection on.
So my understanding in reading through the packet, again, some of that, the logic is they've got that flow data coming from Williston and from Essex Town. And then we basically, whatever the difference is after we have that flow data from those two communities, that's the city's portion. Do we not have meters and flow data on our own lines in order to track that? And if not, why?
The
Let
simple,
Chelsea.
yeah, the simple answer is the town of Essex flows through us. So in many different places, and actually not all of their locations are metered yet. I actually met with the town today, and they're coming up with a plan to get their other major line into us metered. And then that will just leave 2 other areas that they use water data with very few houses on it. That's the short answer, is that because the town flows through at least 2 or 3 of our pump stations. So it's not something that couldn't be done, but then again, that's also would come out of the sanitation budget, or capital to fund that. And we know where that is at the given moment. So that's just the method we have set up for now.
So I guess, like, I understand that the budget has been determined, but at the same time, it then brings me to question again whether or not we can be more accurate, identify problems as well if we are metering our own flow. I get the methodology and how it works, but already, if it were identifying the fact that the town is not metering a portion of theirs, then that seems to suggest that our calculations and assumptions are already off, because we're not metering everything that should be metered. So then I come back to feeling like we should meter our own stuff in order to make sure that everybody is metering their stuff correctly and being able to identify problems. Like here we are having a discussion as I read, and we've had this discussion about this infiltration. I don't know if metering would help us to identify that problem or to, again, isolate these kinds of things. But I feel like we're missing something here. And I, again, recognizing the fact the budget is set, I don't know if this is the appropriate time to have that discussion, but I feel like we should have that discussion.
Can I just add something? I
Yeah.
should say each one of our pump stations, we record the pump run hours for every day. So in theory, we are metering through that. Are we doing, but we're not necessarily utilizing that data probably how we could at this point in time. Not that it can't get there. We have it, it's just setting up some spreadsheets. So it's not, and so we do have that flow through the pump stations. It's more that we're not metering in the same sense that the town of Essex and Williston is, where they're metering the flow in the pipe. So that's where my initial answer was, that we're not metering, but we do have what each pump station is sending out of out into the gravity line or force main or gravity line or whatever. So we could do some back calculations to know how much those pump stations are pumping, gallons per day, gallons per minute, for flow rates.
Can I just ask a clarifying question? Chelsea, if I understood correctly, what I thought I heard is that if we wanted to meter those pump stations, that would come out of our sanitation budget. So if we wanted to better know what the town's flow was, that's on the city to pay for?
Nope, that's on the town. So the town is doing that. They're gonna be installing, with our permission, a flow device in the Susie Wilson jug handle this next year. So we're each, as the tri-town works, we're each in charge of our own collection system. So, and we each pay for our own collection system, so they would bear the cost of that flow meter. But we're essentially requesting it, and it's something they already want to do, honestly, because they don't want to keep having to read all these water meters every month and doing that calculation, and it's not working in today's storm world. So,
Yep.
yeah.
Appreciate that. Thank you, Chelsea.
Yep.
I don't know where. Look at me. I don't know.
Well, I guess if nothing else, then I come back to if it's something that we wanted to move forward and to try to meter this ourselves. And I understand what you're saying about you can kind of do that already. But if the town has not had a meter like the one you just identified on Susie Wilson, the calculation has always been based off not including that flow rate off of Susie Wilson. So we're already, again, maybe I'm not getting this completely.
So they use water usage data to determine the flow to us. So there's a calculation where for that collection area, they get the water usage for each household or whatever property that has a water meter. And there is about a 20% loss. So they're assuming that 20% stays in the house and then 80% flows through. And then there's an infiltration calculation. I think it's an extra 10% or something. I have all the formula. I just don't have their formula memorized, but we actually talked about it today in our meeting. And so the other idea is with this, when this flow device goes in at the Susie Wilson jug handle, it will allow us to know exactly for West Street in particular, how much is the town's flow based on actual flow data versus what's ours because they have a meter point also at Fort Ethan Allen. So, the Fort Ethan Allen and Susie Wilson pump station feed to West Street. And, those are Fort Ethan Allen and Susie Wilson pump street, even though we take care of it, the town pays for that 100%. And, we only have like 4 houses on it or something, so it's very minimal. So with those 2 items, we'll have a really good handle on that part of town. And then the rest, I don't believe go through any of our pump stations on the other side of the town for the town collection getting to us. It's all through gravity. The one that does is already metered. So by then it doesn't really, well, we should be metering what's coming in, and we could do that by pump run hours, like I said, to know where we have infiltration problems. But that's really the side of town. West Street, Pearl Street area is the side of town where getting that last meter in will really help us get a better idea on the report that they send us month to month versus our own flows.
So you feel pretty confident that once they install this and you have that this number that we have right now is pretty close. That's just
Yeah.
to verify where
Yes.
we're at, but we're pretty close.
Yeah.
Okay.
And they put it in their capital plan for starting July 1, assuming that gets approved when they do their enterprise type funds. But he was pretty confident, so.
Okay.
You good? Yeah. Thoughts on the proposed budget amounts, especially the sanitation? I mean, my thought on sanitation is I'd like to use Jess's revised numbers, not the numbers that are in the packet. I think it makes sense to be budgeting to be able to pay the debt payments versus worrying about at the time that we have them due where we're getting the money from. While I don't necessarily like to increase the bottom line to residents, I think it's a fiscally responsible thing to do, for lack of a better word.
I would agree.
Air bills.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So generally, I think I'm okay with everything, with making that minor change to sanitation.
Yep.
Elaine, do you have any thoughts?
Nope, I agree with what you just expressed.
All right. Open it up to public comments. Eyes and ears over there. Anything?
No hands.
Okay. All right. I will entertain a motion then. I think we have 2 separate motions in the packet.
So I'll move to approve the FY25 Enterprise Fund operating and capital budgets for water, wastewater, sanitation, EGRP program as presented, including the modification presented tonight by Jess for the wastewater
Sanitation.
sanitation. Sorry.
Friendly amendment.
I will second that motion.
All right. All in favor, say aye.
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 Aye. No nays. We don't have to do only if there's no,
Well, if it's nay,
if there's
Only-
no nays. Yeah. Thought that was the rules.
And then we need the other motion.
Yep.
I will motion to warn a public hearing on May 22nd, 2024 for the FY25 rate setting for water, wastewater, and sanitation funds.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
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 All right. No nays. All right. Thanks, Jess. Thanks, Chelsea.
Thank you.
All right. Moving on. Flying. All right. I think we're on the consent agenda.
Move we approve the consent agenda?
So moved. Or second.
Or maybe
Or
second.
whatever it is.
Ditto.
Wow. Sorry. I was thinking about something else. No, yes. Sorry. I'll second.
All right. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you. All right. Council member comments and city manager report. Regina?
Okay, So there is an Amtrak platform project happening, so folks are aware. Essentially what's going on is the project will create a raised train platform about 8 inches above the track level. And the edge of the platform will have one of those yellow tactile safety things so people know to not go too close. The project started on April 3rd. It's expected to take about a year. There will be a pause in the wintertime. Half of the length of the platform will be built at a time. There might be some temporary changes to the passenger waiting area. Some parking spaces will be used at different parts of the project. And bus service should not be impacted, though that stop might just move a little bit, 150 feet to the south when needed. Also, we've got the contractors back this week, starting to work on the Crescent Connector project. They're just, this week, they're laying efforts to really get going next week. What they anticipate happening next week is to get into the Bailey Spring and Chassis parking lot. That driveway from Maple Street will be closed. The actual new Crescent Connector Road that is coming off of Park Street, that's been closed off with some pretty hefty physical barriers over this last winter by Karen's Closet, those barriers will come away from there. And the way that people get into Bailey Spring and Chassis parking area and the businesses in there will be through that new roadway. There will not be a through way out of there. You've got to go in and out that way. So the intent is not that this is being open for general public for the new use of the road. But that's how that will work while the road is getting built on the existing driveway into Bailey Spring and Chelsea.
What kind of signage is going to go up to support that?
There will be signage on the Park Street side, explaining how you get into those businesses. And I think there'll be road closure signs on the other side. But I can take a look at that with Rick further.
Yeah, if nothing else, I'd definitely like to see, besides the road closure sign, like, again, directing the entrance on Park Street, if nothing else, to make sure, because if anybody's just mentally going to Bailey Spring and Chassis, we want to make sure that they're being direct, they realize they can still access it in some way.
Okay. Our Tree City USA application has been approved again from the Arbor Day Foundation, so that's exciting. And Public Works is starting to fix some of the lawns. So we had 2 snowstorm events in the springtime. That means the lawns are very soft and there is some damage to lawns. So we're getting out there now to try to get those addressed. That's it.
Can I ask a clarifying question?
Of course.
The train platform,
Yes.
can you just confirm that it's not the redesign or rebuilding of the actual train station, but it is simply just the platform?
That is correct.
Great.
This project is not the city's project. It's not what we intend to do with the train station. It is a totally separate project for that.
Great. Thank you.
Any other comments? Marcus?
No.
Elaine?
I have some
Sure.
questions. My first question is the report on the senior center that is in the reading file. Has that been shared with the seniors?
I believe it has. I can confirm that, but I believe it has been shared with them. And Mark, I believe, was meeting with them either this week or next to go over that. But I will confirm that and get back to you.
Great, thank you, Regina. My other question is, I was reminded when reading the Tree Farm Management Group materials about their board reconstruction that I was wondering what was going on with the Community Advisory Board for the police department. I believe we interviewed somebody quite some time ago, and then we decided to reopen the position to the prior applicants that had been interviewed in the past, and I'm not sure what has happened since then. Can we get an update, Regina?
Yes, I don't believe any of those folks were interested, and I don't think we've had anybody else apply since then.
Okay,
But
so go ahead.
trying to continue to keep advertising that, as well as a couple of other positions that we've got. At this time of year, we also have a number of, we look at the all of the committees and the folks that are up at the end of this term. We will be reaching out to all of those folks, figure out if they want to continue in their positions. If they do, we ask them to reapply. We also advertise all of the positions that are open. So we'll be doing that both for the positions that are city appointments on regional organizations, as well as looking at our individual committees itself. So there will be a big push to identify and understand all of the vacancies that will be coming up and try to get those filled.
Okay, thanks. Also just wanted to make a comment. Congratulations, Amber, on your reelection.
Thank you.
And congratulations to Tim Miller for his election to the board. And Andrew, we'll miss you.
I'll see you in a couple weeks.
Thanks, Elaine. Anybody else? All right, I will entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Seconded.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All right. Thank you all for.
Thank
Thanks,
you.
Elaine. Hope you feel better.